And next with us to talk about the last year of the administration under Mr. Howard Quayle is Alf Cannan, who some might say is a Deputy Chief Minister, but there is no such title in the Isle of Man. But quite often you get that responsibility, don't you, when he's away, or does it?
I do occasionally, yeah. It's depending on the Chief Minister's viewpoint at the time.
Oh, that's interesting. So he doesn't actually there's not a pecking order. It's just who he wants to put in charge.
No, I mean clearly the Treasury Minister's a senior position, but it's up to the Chief Minister.
Right. So you're the man with the plan. You're the man that holds all the strings on the money. This year, let's go back to last year. The last 12 months. What have you achieved? How's it gone for you?
Well, I think there are a number of issues critical issues that we've set out to address, particularly with regards to public finances. So to have returned a £23 million surplus on the last year's accounts was a positive achievement. I think exceeded the targets that we had set, and I think generally that we have got the finances on the track that we need to address the challenges that we're going to face in 2022 when the public sector pensions fund runs out.
How did you get that extra money? Have you been doing stealth taxing, as it would be called in the UK, this great sort of way of pulling in extra money? How do you view this extra money you've been getting?
No, most of it actually was very, very positive income in that it came from income tax and much less spend than we thought on our social services and benefits. And primarily that's been a really positive reflection of the jobs market, more people in employment, 600 or 700 more people registered to pay income tax. Net result of that is that we've had something like £20 million plus of additional income tax receipts, plus additional receipts, as I've said, from our social security, money that would have otherwise been sent on supporting the unemployed, has been able to be retained and held back, and therefore we've got a positive surplus point. But the point is there's no room for overconfidence at the moment, because we do have this £50 million challenge on our hands, and we're determined to get the public finances in a good enough shape to deal with that drop when we get it in 2022.
So away from that, what successes did you have last year? Can you give me something you're particularly proud of?
Well, I think in the last 2 years we've delivered some very positive news in the budget. Primary focus has been helping to change the emphasis, if you like, change the dynamics for those on sort of low to middle incomes who've been really suffering as a result of the last 10 years. And I think we've been through this a number of times, but the impact cannot be underestimated in terms of those who've had almost negative real terms wage increases, and you compare that to the cost of living, the rise in inflation. And we really had to set about addressing that issue. That's why we gave such a significant rise in personal allowances in the very first year, taking them up to £12,500. That's why we gave another significant rise this year, taking it up to £13,250. We also put a lot of emphasis in terms of supporting those in lower incomes in work. That's why we gave more money for employed persons allowance. We gave more support for childcare costs. And those are the key drivers that I think have helped deliver, very good returns from our employment base, but also I think given some relief to hard-working families in this island.
Well, critics would say you're not doing enough still. I mean, they're always looking at you saying, do more. I mean, you hold the purse strings for all the government employees. I mean, where are we up to now? Have you slackened even more? Will there be chances that the nurses and people in the public sector will get a better pay rise come the next round?
Well, those negotiations are ongoing at the moment. Clearly there is a lot of pressure in the public sector, not just from pay, but also from the amount of money, the amount of funds that are available for certain areas. Clearly our focus remains on what I think are the highest priorities for government. We've got a significant review going on of our health and social care service at the moment. Part of the outcome from that will be to determine whether or not we've actually allocated enough funding. Obviously education remains a very key focus for the island. It's hugely important that we maintain our focus in that area. And of course pay as well. So public sector workers, like everybody else, have felt the pinch, and to be fair to them, they've also been impacted in other areas. They are paying more now for their pensions than they were, for example, So yes, a lot of challenges still remain in terms of public finances.
Departments get their budgets, and at the time recording this in September, it's come to the head that the health is already going off on one. It's £1 million, although Mr. Ashford said we shouldn't be worried about that. That's maybe a small fry because it's only not finished the year. How do you deal with that? You're the man that has to keep this all under wrap, under fixed to stop them going over. What do you do when things like this come in to your mathematical plan?
Well, I mean, Mr. Ashford's got the budget to deal with that kind of
he's $1 million over it, really, isn't he?
shortfall at the moment.
He's got to come back at some point, isn't he?
He will come back, or the department will come back in due course if they are not going to meet their spending targets for the year. They will have to report that to Treasury, and then, of course, if they need more funds, then the process that's then invoked is they then have to go to Tynwald for approval. So yes, we do track departmental spending. Clearly, they report to us regularly. We get to see those reports on a quarterly basis, and yes, where there are issues, then generally there are also accompanying questions. And when Mr. Ashford feels it appropriate, he will come to Treasury and will explain to me and to the other political members exactly why the department again is overspending. We will look at we will look at the issues behind that, and then of course if we can see no other option, then he will go to Tynwald to ask for that money.
Well, he's going to have it. I mean, that's the fact, isn't it? What are you looking forward to next year? Have you got your eyes on any particular legislation that you're interested in putting through?
Well, I think that next year, really, the focus for the island is going to be, we need to build on the success, I think, the platform that we've put in place in the last 2 years. We need to be confident about the island's ability to deal with a number of challenges that are coming through. Not only do we have the whole issue of Brexit, we have a number of items of pressure coming in from the European Union at present, including this business of having substance or more substance to the island's financial services economy. We're working really hard to ensure that we meet the commitments there to avoid being blacklisted in the new year.
And a blacklist for which one?
Well, this is the EU Code of Conduct.
And is there a potential? Is there that serious?
Well, as you know, I mean, a year ago we made that commitment. We were put on a grey list.
Yeah.
We were told that we needed to make certain commitments. We've made those commitments. We've been in negotiations, and it's our intention to have brought in the legislation, the applicable legislation, before the end of this year.
So they say jump, and you jump exactly to what they ask you to do.
I think the island has adopted a position of meeting its international commitments now, believing, I think, that it's right in a fast-changing environment, particularly financial services, particularly given all the scrutiny that's been around tax and taxation in recent years, that we meet international commitments where they're put to us. And particularly so, whether you like it or not, when you get a threat of potential blacklisting, irrespective of how much the island doesn't like that, the point is we could have negative impacts in our ability to offer banking to our businesses. So it's right that we respond. We're not being bullied. We've committed to meeting this, and I think that it's right that we are continuing to push ahead in these critical areas.
How much damage did the Paradise Papers saga, and I call it a saga because not just them, but you had the BBC come up with this amazingly, actually it's not for me to comment, but surprising panorama program, if you can even call it journalism, I'm not sure, but there must be a reaction to that. And has it affected people coming here to do business because of, and should you be dealing with those people anyway? But that's not a question. Not
to my knowledge. I mean, those situations are never particularly pleasant to deal with, but sometimes they happen. It was a very biased report and set of reports that was delivered. I think the island actually had a very small, minimal impact on the island. In some respects, you could argue it increased our profile. The net result of that, it does mean we've had to work. We have had to work a bit harder to make sure that we are once again convincing Europe, convincing Westminster that we're on side and that we are delivering.
How do you think Howard Quayle handled it?
I think the government did what was necessary.
No, Howard Quayle and going on camera and doing other things. Were you in favour? Because I've heard things, and I'm sure you weren't in favour. Would it be fair to say that you thought it wasn't the right policy that was taken?
I think we did. No, we needed to react in a way that gave people confidence that the island was taking this matter seriously.
How did you get on with Howard Quayle?
Howard Quayle's the chief minister.
Such
we're working well. We're working well together. And
you're not buddies, particularly, are you? Would you say? I mean, you disagree with him on a lot of things behind the scenes.
I think Howard Quayle is proving to be a good chief minister.
You want
that? Howard and I have a good working relationship, as does the Council of Ministers. It's an open, transparent relationship. I think there's fair room for people to argue their points of view. And clearly, when you work in that kind of relationship, you accept the limitations that come with that. And you accept, therefore, that you are bound by collective responsibility and you adhere to that.
Okay, I can read. I mean, I think everyone else can read into things there. What you're trying to say, you're doing a very political sort of answer there. But okay, do you still want to be the chief minister?
I think what I would say is that I have been very lucky in my political career. I'm very pleased to hold the role as Treasury Minister for as long as that is entrusted to me.
Do you want to be the chief minister?
It's far too.
Well, it's a yes or no,
for me to start making any sort of.
It's a question. I'm not asking for a timeline.
I'm very
saying,
happy.
Would you like
Paul,
to be
I am a very happy man in terms of the
would
role
you like
that
to
I'm
be the
doing.
Chief Minister?
I'm very happy.
At some point, would you like to? At some point in the future.
Paul, I can't say it enough. I'm very happy doing what I am doing.
Okay. Let's talk about how you're rating everything, because this year, well, last year you weren't very forthcoming, and I did push you, and I pushed you, nothing came. But I did say this year, and we've had this thing that everyone I've asked for, how do you rate yourself? And you said a little more time was required, so you've had a little more time. How do you rate out of 10? I know it's tricky with all the different sides of it, but can you give me a number this year? I'm going to ask you for a number, definitely. What do you rate yourself out of 10, your performance?
Well, I think, Paul, there are so many challenges that government has to deal with, that I have to deal with as a politician, that the Treasury has to deal with. And you're forever moving on to the next challenges once things have been tackled, resolved, or new issues arise. So I think just to put a figure on that, put a number on that, is incredibly difficult. I think that actually what you'll be better off doing is getting to the end of an administration and then being able to say, well, I think you've achieved.
I want to do this every year, and it's just like, it's following people's progress. Do you want me to rate you, or are you going to give me something? Because I'll give you a number if you won't, but I want you to give me.
Well, that's very kind.
No,
very kind
I'm
of
not
you,
being
Paul.
kind. It's really, I don't want to do it because I want you to give me a number, and it's your responsibility because
well,
I'm asking.
I don't think that applying
you said you give me a number.
numbers,
I'm sure.
I don't think I did.
Yeah,
I think applying numbers or rating a government's performance.
Well, I'm going to ask for that in a second, but yours first of all. What out of 10 would you give yourself?
Well, I think that's for others to judge. I really do.
So
that is for my constituents and for the people of the island and other politicians.
It's a shame you haven't, because everyone else has. Even the Chief Minister has. It's a shame that you can't give me a number out of 10. I'll give you 7. Are you happy with that? Okay. Well, let's park that one for next year, and next year we'll try again.
Right.
How do you rate the government out of 10?
Well, again, I mean, just broadly based on what I've just said to you, you can't just sit there and rate a government's performance.
You're not being held to it by anything. It's just your feel about how you. I mean, you have a feeling. Whatever, you'll leave this room and you'll have a number. In fact, you've got a number in your head now.
Because Paul,
why
I
don't you
think
want to
the moment that you start rating your government or start rating the performance levels yourself, I think you're in trouble. Look, what I would say to everybody is that we're always facing new challenges, that we have a lot to tackle, that you can't just sit still and put a figure on that, right? I mean, I committed to tackling a lot of these issues that we've just discussed for the last few minutes or so. I've told you what the types of challenges that we're facing in the future. What I think is most important is that we get on and start tackling those.
This is old stuff, but if when you were years ago in the last administration, I'd asked you for rating the government, you would have given me, you'd probably said 2s and 3s, because that's what you did. You were that person that was outside the tent, and now you're inside the tent. You're kind of locked down. You're doing what you're told. You're not going to impart information to the public that you don't want to impart. I understand, but it's a shame. But there you go. How do you do as a constituency MHK? You know, did you answer the PAG question? Because there were a few that didn't. I can't remember yours. Did you know this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the so actually we've just had a question now from the newspapers about justifying the 500 or so pounds that we get in expenses a month as a constituency MHK, and I think, you know, we have a very large constituency in the north of the island. It stretches from Michael to Bride, 6 villages, 5 primary schools, 6 village halls, multitude of events to cover, multitude of charitable events to cover, businesses, farmers, isolated people living in isolated conditions. Housing estates.
You need that money.
It's a busy old constituency.
So how do you rate, you know, between government and constituency? What's your breakdown there? I'm asking for another figure. Goodness knows I'm going to get one, but this is a percentage now, isn't it? Between what you do for work for the government and what you do for your constituency.
My job as the Treasury Minister clearly takes up a considerable amount of my time.
Of course.
And you know, I commit as much as I can to the constituency. Hugely important that I am seen out to support local events, give some leadership to local events. I chair 2 local charities.
So 80-20, you know, push that out there, see if we can get a yes or no from you. Less?
I think that's not an unreasonable, possibly an unreasonable breakdown, possibly a bit higher on the constituency.
For managers with figures, it's really tricky getting anything out of you here. But let's talk about the budget finally. You're working it right now. Are we going to have not a giveaway budget, but will we have a feel-good budget? Let's try that.
Well, I think I've already alluded to you that it's important that we retain the confidence, build on the platform that we've achieved, both in terms of getting more people into employment, increasing our income tax levels, seeing better results in terms of the taxpayer spend in some of our social security and benefits. So we'll be building on that. And what I can say to you is that I am confident that the island is very well placed to address the challenges that are coming forward in the next 12 months.
Everything
and
up.
We will be delivering a budget to reflect that.
You need to take all those words and start pulling things out, because you don't just answer, do you? You give this sort of big, rounded answer, which is very political. And I understand you're doing it for whatever reason. But, you know, maybe sometimes...
I'm not about to tell you now, Paul, at this precise stage, what is and isn't going to be in the budget. No. But what I will tell you is that absolutely we are budgeting for a successful future for this island and a confident future for the island.